Hello, my name is Mats Espander. I've been an active investor in Orexo for several years, and among others, I'm hosting a Facebook group for investors to discuss Orexo. Talking to many private investors, I've identified many questions which never get addressed in the short corporate presentations that we're used to see from Orexo. To get a chance to dig a little deeper into the business dynamics around Orexo, I've arranged 3 Q&A sessions with Nikolaj, where we will have the chance to discuss the company on a more detailed level than the usual short sessions with analysts and similar. We recorded the first session a few weeks ago, and I recommend all of you to take some time to listen to this discussion about Zubsolv if you want to learn more about Orexo. This will be the second session today, and we will discuss Orexo's venture into digital therapies. Hello, Nikolaj.
Hello, Mats.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's great to sit here and get ready to answer a lot of questions. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah. And going back to our latest discussion, firstly, I would like to ask, we were talking about the COVID-19 situation and the vaccine, and you said that in a few weeks, you're hoping that all of the sales staff will have received their vaccine. Have they received it?
The vast majority of our staff in the US have been vaccinated, and it was quite great to see yesterday. We had a management team meeting, and actually 3 out of the 4 members in the office in the US were sitting in the office. So that's great. That also goes for the field force, where most of them are vaccinated, and in the US you can actually, as an employer, require that your employees should be vaccinated. And after a lot of discussion, we have decided to make that a requirement, that if you're going to work with Orexo and you're meeting our customers in their clinics, we require that they are vaccinated. So now I would expect the few employees who might not have been vaccinated, they are in the process to get a vaccination.
Do you think this, when the field force will be able to come back to meet the doctors face to face, do you think we will have? It's likely that we have a win from the COVID-19 situation, where you can use both the face to face meetings and the new digital tools like this Zoom and Teams.
Absolutely. No, I think the COVID-19 has definitely taught us and our customers how to work with video conferencing, and I'm quite certain that will continue to be a core element of our sales channels. However, I still find that the most effective sales calls are in front of the customers, but I think in particular those calls that you have with customers in between the more important calls, you can often do them as efficient just having a short dial-in on the video conference. So I think it will be both. And one of the things that we have seen is more and more of our customers have actually starting to increase their own work using telemedicine. So they are not sitting in the office to the same extent as they did before. Therefore, it's also more difficult to use the traditional sales model in the US, where our sales reps are literally sitting, waiting in the waiting room for the doctor to have time. But if the doctor is not there, but using telemedicine, then that wouldn't work, of course. So we do need to adapt, and I think there's a lot of efficiency we can get out of COVID-19. But in particular, when you have new product as the digital therapies we're going to discuss today, I don't think anything beat a meeting in face-to-face with the customer. And I see week by week, we're following this very, very, very closely. We see that the number of face-to-face sales calls are increasing. And right now, I think the outburst we had of COVID-19 in the Michigan area, which is an important area for us, has now gone down. So I think we are in a better position today to across the US to meet the customers in a normal way.
Yeah, sounds promising for the future, I would say.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about digital therapies, and I have a number of questions here, and so right away with the first. How would you describe the market for DTx in the US, and how does it differ from the traditional pharma sales?
Thank you, Mats. I think this is a very keen question for us also. And it's no doubt that Orexo is in a very steep learning process and where we learn every day that it's apparent that there are many differences between pharma and DTx. So for a starter, I think the core of any sales in the healthcare sector, in particular if you want a good price, is to ensure you have a reimbursement and distribution system that works. And that one is well established for pharmaceutical products, but virtually non-existing on a national scale for digital therapies. That means that we as a company need to work out ways to work together with the different stakeholders, everyone from the end user, the patients, to the physicians, to the payers, to find ways where we get this distribution of the product in place while we get paid some money, probably directly from the patient, some money from the insurance company, or for some customers also from the physician. So all of this needs to be built from the ground and from a blank sheet of paper, you can say, whereas for the pharmaceutical industry that exists. So it's very important and something that we see. We need to educate the stakeholders in a way that we don't need to do when it comes to pharmaceuticals, because all of this is already established.
Okay. Yeah, to me, this looks like the DTx have much broader market opportunities than the traditional pharma, which I guess offers both a diversifying function and additive business opportunity from a financial risk standpoint. But at the same time, it demands more diversified organization in regards of competences and skills. How is Orexo going to be able to meet these competences, skills, demands in the market to be able to harvest all these business opportunities?
So Matt, you're completely right, both in terms of the market opportunities and in terms of what is required from our sales reps, and also in terms of what types of sales channels that exist. It's very different from what we know from pharmaceuticals. So if you should look into our digital therapy team in the US and also in Sweden, the background we have is quite diverse. We have some people with a pharma background, but we also have a lot of people with other types of background. We have someone we've recruited from the insurance industry who have been working with health insurances. We have someone who have been working with digital health within CVS Caremark. We have someone who have worked with another digital health company. We have someone who worked in advertising agencies. So we are setting together a more diverse set of competences in our team in the US, basically to meet those specific needs of digital therapies. And when we go to the sales force, we also see that the selling process is quite different from what we know, what we're used to. So here we have a lot of education ongoing of our existing field force. But when it comes, for example, for Deprexis, we are just about to deploy a field force that is just focused on Deprexis in what we can call a smaller pilot project. I think there will be 5 or 6 people in some regions in the US, and they will have a different background than a traditional pharma sales rep.
Yeah, okay. A year ago, you presented a 5-year goal for your DTx business, exceeding revenues of $500 million. Since then, there has of course happened a lot of things. Where I understand that market conditions have somewhat changed. Is that correct?
I still find that the potential of these products is significant, and you only need a few % of the patients in each of the disease areas before you reach numbers up to 500 million or even $1 billion. However, what I want to underline, something I've said continuously and nearly all presentations I've had, is that the digital therapies and e-health is in an industry which is still in its infancy. It's quite clear that some of the hurdles that we presented first time we presented this $500 sales potential at the Capital Markets Day in March last year. We also presented right after a slide with some hurdles in the market, and some of these hurdles remain hurdles for us to address before we can see the markets take off. And the one that I see particular is around reimbursement. And here, when we had the COVID-19, we got emergency use authorization from FDA, allowing us to launch Vorvida much faster than anticipated. It allows us also now to launch Modia much faster than what we anticipated. And we were expecting and hoping that the insurance companies would follow. So when FDA saw a big need from a patient perspective, we saw that the insurance companies would address this with the same kind of agility that we saw from the FDA, which I would say is quite uncommon to see from a regulatory authority. However, what we have seen has not really met those expectations. The insurance companies remain to be sitting a little on the side, watching and trying to find out how are we going to address this market. The positive for me is that basically all of the insurance companies we're talking to see that digital therapies and e-health is going to be an integrated part of life sciences, no doubt about that. However, from an individual company perspective, they also say, we can't make a solution just for you, Orexo. We need to decide how are we going to address this space on a complete universal level. And this is some of the issues that we have to work with. And I think before that is solved, it's very difficult to see this market is really starting to booming. Then, of course, if you do make an individual agreement with one of the large insurance companies, several of them have the size of most large European countries. So, for example, United Health Group, I believe, have more than 40 million people with an insurance under United Health Group. So that's the size of France. So if you do get an agreement in place with them, it's a significant opportunity. But I do think that reimbursement is one of those that we need to get in place positively. Everyone are interested, everyone are working towards the same goal, but it takes time. And it's, of course, I think a lot of them would like to see this also become a national system where you have national reimbursement codes, so not every insurance company have to invent their own method.
Yeah, okay. So we can say that both the market itself and the reimbursement system have the time to mature, so to say.
Yep.
Okay. Can you explain the changes in regards of the possibilities to obtain reimbursement for the DTx products a year ago compared to present time?
The changes during the pandemic is that we have seen a dramatic increase in the awareness and the interest of the DTx products. However, just like I said before, we have also seen many insurance companies have decided that they need to have an overarching strategy in place on how to review, how to assess, and how to reimburse these products, rather than allowing reimbursement of individual solutions for one particular player. We haven't really seen any of our colleagues managing to get nationwide reimbursement. Most of them is very individual. Some insurance companies are testing certain solutions. So I think this is one of the things that now will benefit of us going back to work, having COVID-19 hopefully soon back behind us, because I think these discussions are easier to take when you're meeting face to face. So one of the things we have seen during COVID-19 is more awareness, more interest, a big boom of suppliers of digital therapies also. And now what I think we need to just have some patience is for the insurance companies to basically get the ducks in the row and find a way to reimburse these products.
Okay. So, but why did you start a test in Pennsylvania? Why didn't you just jump straight into a national launch? It could appear you're a little bit too cautious.
So one of the ways that we have found that we could kind of circumvent the existing reimbursement system is to work through something called medical benefit. That's basically that we're using a reimbursement route that exists today for interventions. This is in contrast to pharmaceutical benefits, which is based on the payments flow go through pharmacies and wholesalers. In the medical benefit, the payment is going to the physician, and then the physician basically buy the equipment needed for the treatment. And that's why we see the equipment needed for treatment of alcohol abuse or for depression could be Vorvida or Deprexis, and soon also MODIA. So this is what we have tested in Pennsylvania, is how we could integrate our solutions into these existing treatment categories of alcohol use and depression, where there are already medical benefit codes associated with this. However, this is completely new, and how we could get this integrated into the system in a way where the doctor would still get paid for their time and where we could get paid for our products is something we needed to test, and we have a lot of learnings from Pennsylvania that we're now ready to expand on, and we're already leveraging in discussions with other customers.
Okay. So what are the outcomes experiences to date from the tests in Pennsylvania?
So what we've seen is that the model work. We've seen that the physicians receive reimbursement. We have seen that the insurance companies accept the treatment pattern that we have, where Vorvida, now the focus has been on Vorvida initially. But what we also have seen is that the insurance coverage for the individual can differ. So if the two of us had a different health insurance, it would be likely that we would have a different reimbursement. Not that they wouldn't reimburse, but I might have to pay 50% of the cost, whereas you might get fully insured and get everything covered by the insurance company. So what we have learned is basically it works. And what we're doing now is that we're talking to healthcare providers all over the US to basically start offering these treatment programs to their patients, and then they can get paid by the insurance companies. And this is something that unfortunately had to take some time. A treatment with Vorvida is a 6 months treatment, and we want to be sure that the physicians actually get paid throughout the entire treatment period, and to see what happens if a patient jump off. Will they still get paid? How much money do they get paid when? And then we align our payment structure from the healthcare provider to that system. So there's a lot of work and a lot of, I would say, the devil is hidden in the details with this, because no one have ever done this before. So it's a lot of innovation, you can say, in reimbursement, and I think it's helping us a lot with some of the work we're doing with healthcare providers right now.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So you revealed that payers that have accepted, that there are payers that have accepted reimbursement for individual patients. What does this mean, and how and when will you be able to scale this on a national level?
So today you can go into our web pages, us.vorvida.com and us.deprexis.com, and you can either decide to pay out of pocket, or you can request Orexo to make a reimbursement request to the insurance company. And basically what you do is that you share your information about your health insurance, and we will then complete the formula and send it into the insurance company asking for reimbursement. And what we've seen is for some of these requests are approved, some of them are denied. However, what we have seen is that some of the patients from the same insurance companies get a different outcome. So some of them get a denial and some of them get approved. And that makes, in the beginning, we were a little enthusiastic because we did see several patients coming through from the same insurance company, but now we are also seeing some patients coming through the same who got denied. And before we can start promoting that you're reimbursed, we would need to know that it is that it's kind of universal for all patients with that insurance will get paid. So we have to wait a little, and unfortunately, I think before we can start rolling it out, we would need to have an explicit agreement in place with the insurance company.
Okay. And as for the full year of 2021, which 2 to 3 of the sources for revenues within DTx would you say will be contributing the most to the total revenues for DTx to Orexo?
So if you look right now, the revenue we get is nearly all of it from direct purchases through our website. But if I look throughout 2021, I do think this will still be accounting for probably the majority of our income. But I also see already now we start to see revenues coming from what we call direct contracts with healthcare providers. That means healthcare providers who purchase our product and then provide them to the patients and get paid through a reimbursement model like the one we tested in Pennsylvania. And then the last part I think will start to hit in also during the second half of this year. That is from employers. So employers who are basically buying licenses for their employees.
Okay. So if you look at your opportunities to sell to employers, i.e. corporations, you mentioned you have ongoing tests. When is it likely that you will see real revenues from this source?
So one of the things when we test the products, and that goes both for employers and healthcare providers, they of course want to test the full product. And since Vorvida is a 6 months treatment and Deprexis is a 3 months treatment, that give a natural time lag from when we start until we can get a decision. However, we do have several employers who have been testing the products for quite a while right now. So we do expect to see the first revenue coming from this source during the second half. It could be either directly from the employer, but some of those who have been testing it actually want their normal occupational health care provider to offer it. So rather than they have to go directly to us, we go to their occupational health care provider who provide it to their employees. That's more from an administrative perspective. That's a little easier, but we do expect the first revenue coming from either employers or through occupational healthcare providers will come during the second half of 21.
Okay, so but when we're talking about these testings, the product works. There are studies, numerous studies that tells it works. Are the companies testing if it works, or what is it they're testing?
I think it is. So there's two things. So one is basically how much hassle is it to get access to the product? How does it work distributing the license codes? For some employers and our in particular healthcare providers, they want to test whether the insurance pathway works. But then there is that, I think, little disbelief among, you can say, more conservative healthcare providers and doctors, both also within some of the employers. Can this really work, or isn't it much better for a person to talk to a real counselor? So and that's something we have seen, of course, in some of the discussion with in particular employers, that there are people who are skeptical to whether this could provide you with the same impact as talking to a real counselor. My counter argument to them is quite often that how easy is it for you to find a counselor for your employees? And most of them admit that that is very hard, in particular right now, that even though you have insurance, you're paying it for it through your employer, it's hard to find a counselor. The second part is that we are not aiming to replace the counselor. We're just aiming to make it more efficient and make it more convenient. But I do think there is this skepticism. Is this really working in the same way as a real counselor? And I think there are a lot of people who are still buying personal trainer hours, even though a lot of evidence show that a personal trainer using your cell phone is as effective as having one in the gym. There are people who like myself, when I have back pain, I did use an app, but I also consulted my physiotherapist. So I think it takes a little time before you get comfortable that it's working. And that is some of the stuff that they're talking with. And one of the larger employers, we're meeting them in a week or two. Their first test is not really about the medical outcome. It's more whether their employees feel that this is a good tool. So are you comfortable with this? Do you feel that your integrity is protected? How do you feel that the user interface works? So it's on some other parameters than just the treatment outcome.
Yeah, and when we're talking about this corporate business, this is they will provide this service as additional possibility to the employees, like having a gym card or getting a massage or something like that and so this seems like huge possibility, I would say. And how will the financial structure look like in the agreements with employers with regards to fixed fees and continuous revenues from subscriptions?
I think the most of them will probably just have a pay-per-user fee. So you agree on some kind of structure with how many, where you either buy a bulk number of licenses that you can use, or you're buying a certain number, then you pay a certain price depending on how many you use. But what we have seen in particular for occupational healthcare providers, when they come in between, some of them have more of a subscription service. And there we might need to adapt our fee structure to something which is maybe more a fixed fee, and then you have a more variable fee, which is much lower depending on number of users. But I do think that the majority will be simply straight off. You buy one license and you pay for that.
Yeah, okay. So in the recent quarterly report, you mentioned two larger healthcare providers that are preparing an integration of Orvida and the Praxis into their treatment programs during Q2. To me, this is quite a huge step, I would say, since it usually takes years before a new treatment is able to earn a place in the caregiver's treatment programs. How come you have this achievement such a low focus in the report?
So to Orexo, this is a very important step, and it's completely in line with the concept that we've talked about before that we tested in Pennsylvania. That means that the healthcare provider integrate our products into a treatment program that they then will offer to their patients. And then they will get paid through the medical benefit route for the products. And they will pay to us then. When we come to the communication, one of the things that I find right now is that it's quite easy to go out and create quite large expectations about this, because it is an important step. But one of the things that I have seen in digital therapies is that the step from agreement to implementation is longer than what we used to see in pharmaceuticals. And therefore, I want to be a little cautious setting the immediate expectations to revenue. And the reason is quite simple. It is the lack of system support. It's the lack of administrative processes, even for the healthcare providers, for how they should offer this to their patients and get it reimbursed through their internal systems. So I go a little cautious, but we're of course quite encouraged to see that we have some healthcare providers who see this as an interesting new treatment offering that they can have to their patients.
Okay. On the other hand, to put this into a treatment program, I suppose cost coverage is sold to the patients and the caregivers, which means Orexo is able to obtain revenues, even if it's low in the start. But there is a possibility for raised revenues further on. Can you elaborate on this?
So you're completely correct, and again, it's the solution that we have from Pennsylvania that we start to see some revenues actually already today come through this method. However, the revenues that we have seen so far is from quite small healthcare providers, often one doctor, a couple of doctors clinic, and they can manage all of these processes manually. But when you come to a larger healthcare provider, they need to build this system support that I talked about before. And to give you an example, we have one of the larger healthcare providers who have verbally agreed to us already last year in the autumn that they want to do this. But before they want to implement, they want to get acceptance from their top insurance companies. They want to build the system and processes around how to manage. And then when you have done that, they will be ready to roll it out. We have already started to educate some of their employees or the medical staff in the organization, but we're actually not yet there where we have signed the final contract on the prices and how we're going to supply the digital therapies.
Okay.
But they are working towards the same goal, but it just takes time. And I think just applying a Swedish logic to this, for those of you who are Swedish listening, if I should go to a larger healthcare provider in Sweden like Capio, which is the same size of some of those we're talking to in the US, And all of the Capio units needs to find a way to reimburse this into a central finance center, who then needs to send the reimbursement. Part of it pay for it to Orexo, and part of it should go from the insurance companies in Sweden, from the county councils, which, by the way, would then be for Capio, just like the healthcare provider in the US, be different payers. Everyone, I think, can understand that that is not a super simple process, in particular if it's a new product where no processes and systems exist today. So we need to have a little patience, but my encouragement is that we are making progress, and it's not a question of if, it's the question of when we will start to see real revenues coming this way.
Yeah, okay. But do I understand you right? Because what I wonder is, if does the doctor or the clinic, do they earn money? Do they profit from prescribing digital therapies? Is there a win for them?
It's following the same logic that you have in other procedures you do as a doctor, and in particular now in the US, that if you do a hip replacement, you use an artificial hip and you get paid from the insurance company and in that process there's a profit for the doctor to be made. A hip replacement has a fixed price. And the same goes for a treatment of alcohol abuse. It has a fixed price. Most of the insurance companies will pay $2,000 for that. But then for that to pay $2,000, they want it to be a treatment over 6 months. They also want certain activities to be documented and done by the physicians throughout the treatment. But what we have seen is that they do accept that a lot of the active treatment is going through Vorvida for alcohol addiction, for example. That means that even when we get paid today, our list price is $599 for Vorvida. There's still $1,400 for the doctor to pay for his or her time. So there's definitely money to be earned for the physicians.
So there are sources to increased revenues to the clinics and the doctors in using digital therapies.
Absolutely. I think that is actually the logic for some of the larger healthcare providers. As one of the CFO from one of the companies says, the attraction he sees is that he can treat many more patients with the same staff, because they don't need to see the patients as frequently as they do right now. They have a follow-up on how the patient is progressing through the system. So he sees this as a significant improvement in productivity in a space where they have had a lot of difficulties to find qualified counselors.
Interesting. So are there further healthcare providers that are in progress towards implementing this into their treatment programs? Because when you come into treatment program, you have a definition where, when and why and how and where, so to say, the patients, the doctor is to offer digital therapies as a treatment option to the patient.
So the short answer is yes. And what I'm convinced is that when we have the first doctors who start to have patients coming through, it makes onboarding of the next doctor much more easy. And when some of them become real showcases as the first movers, I'm also sure that will convince more healthcare providers to jump on the same ship. So what we need right now is to get a little more scale of these first movers we have right now, and then I'm quite certain that more healthcare providers will jump in, and we have a quite long list of healthcare providers that we are working with. A lot of them are testing, we can say, for free or complimentary licenses with some of their patients. So the answer to your question is yes, there are more healthcare providers who are on the way in.
Nice. So going back to this about the platform you're testing in Pennsylvania, you revealed that there are opportunities for you to attract other DTx actors to use your platform. Please elaborate on these opportunities, and if you already have discussions with such potential customers.
So we think the model we have tested in Pennsylvania, it works well, but I would also say that puts a lot of efforts on us as a provider because there's a big lack of system support. It also put a lot of efforts on the individual physician. So here it's very important for us to have this process and system that can manage it as smooth as possible. And we are in discussion with other DTx actors about our platform and how the investments we have made here is a significant differentiator for us and could be for them also when they want to enter the US. And to be concrete, the discussions we have right now is more with European actors who are looking to enter the US, and they don't have a product approved today. So it will take a little time before we start to see revenues. But we do see some of them are basically could be even products that we start to promote from Orexo, and we have discussions with some other early stage who are seeing this as a product that they would actually like to attach to their pharmaceutical, and then we could use our platform to distribute it in the US.
Okay. Further to business development and acquisitions of DTx products or pharmaceutical products, are you looking for buying already approved and established therapies, or are you broadening your pipeline with products that are not about to enter the market for the first time?
So we're fortunate, as you know, to have a quite strong cash position with more than 700 million on the bank account. We have a quite strong cash flow from Zubsolv coming in, even though Zubsolv top line have gone down a little, we have also managed to improve our profitability. And this enables us to look into some of these business development models and acquisitions where we can both look at commercially available products, but also products which are in a late stage development. So we are acting a little opportunistic here, but one thing we are not looking at is early stage products, neither from pharma and nor from DTx point of view.
Okay. So will you stick to current therapeutic areas, or are you looking to broaden this as well?
Our main focus is within mental health. It's an area with a huge unmet need from a lot of patients, and we believe that it's quite evidently a space where areas like cognitive behavioral therapy can have a very positive impact on patient treatment outcome. At the same time, I also think we are not in a position where we can afford not to be opportunistic. So if other opportunities present themselves, we are ready to act.
Okay. If we look at the future market potential for such products, are we talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, or even products with blockbuster potential, meaning $1 billion or more? And can we expect an announcement of such an acquisition in the near future?
So to take your last question first, I will not unfortunately reveal on a call right now whether we are going to make out an announcement in the near term. However, for most products within mental health, you can quite easily reach very high numbers in terms of revenue forecast and revenue potential, because there's so many people who are suffering from the diseases. And when we manage to put Orexo into a position being a leading player within mental health and digital therapies, I'm quite certain that the opportunities would be significant. Right now, we have a little wild west where a lot of entrants come in. I think we're one of the stronger companies, both in terms of profitability and in terms of our existing platform with the pharmaceuticals. But it is going to be an area where we will see some winners will start to prevail and can build a stronger and stronger position. And those winners will have a very good position to make their products very, very large. I'm absolutely convinced that digital therapies and e-health is going to be the next big thing within life science. But again, I just want to say that people have to understand we are in an industry which is in its infancy, and we just have to continue working as a company to address the hurdles that are in this market to ensure that it takes off. But just listening to every expert and commentator on this, reading every report that we've seen from banks and others looking into digital therapy, it is not a question of if, it is just a question of when it will take off.
Yeah, and you have a pole position in entering the market right now, I would say.
I believe so.
Yeah. Are there any other highlights, events, or happenings you'd like us to keep our eyes open for?
So I hope that what you will start to see if you follow and Google on Orexo's digital therapies is to see other players in the US starting to promote our products. So you will see that coming in to be integrated into other people's promotion to their end customers. It can be both telehealth companies, it can be occupational health providers and individual clinics. And then I think it's some of the core for us as a pharmaceutical company is that we are working closer and closer is to see how we can build this business model around healthcare providers. So the area I would look at if I were looking at Orexo is whether Orexo is capable to attract some healthcare providers to leverage our digital therapies, which would give us an edge towards other digital therapy companies who come more from the tech side, because most of them both lack the understanding and the relationships with the healthcare providers in the US. So I think that is right now an area I would keep my eyes open for, and also of course Orexo, when we're doing larger deals which are not just pilot trials, we would also of course communicate that to the market. Then if you just look at the overall company, what do we have near term? We have our OX124 project, which is going into a pivotal trial in just a little more than a month from now. We of course have on both all our digital therapies. I hope we will see a continuous and steady stream of news coming through the second half of the year. We have a Zubsolv where we start to see a stabilized sales, and I hope we can start to see when COVID-19 is over that we can rebound Zubsolv back to growth. So there's a lot of stuff happening at the Orexo, but I think the core of the company is we have a quite profitable pharma business in the US. We have a pole position, as you said, within digital therapies where we can leverage the revenues coming from pharma. And we have, I would believe, a quite exciting product in the OX124 coming out of our R&D site in Uppsala. So a lot of stuff happening, but I also think we kind of coming into a new area where it's also require a little patience because we have to do a lot of blocking and attacking before we have the market of DTx can bloom for full. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I would say we have had a number of days with rain and gray skies in Sweden, and right now it opens up to me and the sun is shining. I have, as you know, Nikolaj, I have quite extensive experience from working within the depression and the drug abuse area from the pharmaceutical industry, and this sounds fantastic to me, I would say. So keep on working.
Thank you, Mats.
And thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to have this Q&A with you.
Thank you very much, Mats. And I can hear that you must be south of me because when I look out of my window here in Stockholm, it looks quite rainy, quite gray. So I'm really looking forward to the sun coming. But I can tell you my team in the US, they are enjoying what they call summer-like weather right now. So I hope that is a kind of an indicator of where Orexo is headed, also going from rain into summer. So thank you so much for taking the time to ask and collect all of these questions. It's quite amazing. It's very rare that I get into this depth. So this is fun, I think, and it takes a little time, but it's quite fun. I hope people have the patience to listen. So thank you a lot, Mats.
Thanks.